Hey there, how's it going today? Today I'm talking about the YLT Tank 150. This is pretty close to a Daiwa Alphas Air clone, and I've done a good bit of fishing with it, and I'm ready to kind of share what my opinions are of it. Let's just cut to the chase. Should you buy this reel or not? I think if you like the Daiwa Alphas Air and you want a budget backup, I think this is a fantastic buy. Otherwise, I think there are other better options out there, and let's go into why. I'll share exactly what I like and what I don't like about this reel. So first of all, it's a great looking reel. It sort of has that red and gray, I call it that sexy reel look, right? It does look awesome. It's got a lot of nice little details on it. It's got the right look. It dialed in really fast. So this reel, I like instantly, I took it out to the water and I started catching fish. And I caught some nice fish on this reel. I was able to give it a nice workout. The drag clicker. So the drag clicker has a decent sound to it. It's not obnoxiously loud. I thought it was going to be louder, but once I got the line on it, and honestly once it wore in a little bit, it was pretty good. You can see on the side there, this has been knocked around a good bit. And through all that, it still continues to function well. I've had it on some bigger rivers. I've had it on some smaller creeks. Things that I did like, again, it dialed in fast. It seemed to cast pretty well, although I really bought this to use with heavier lures. This isn't a 1 gram casting master, right? So for me, it was like 2.5, 3 grams and up was everything I was going to throw on it, and it did that well. But it did seem that as it sort of wore in and maybe the grease got out of the bearings a little bit, it seemed to have a little bit more vibration during the casting, a little bit more noise. Like you could hear the spool turning as the line was flying off of it. It's not a big deal. One other thing that I noticed with this, and I think it had to have been the reel because I haven't seen it. I put a different reel on that same rod and I haven't seen the same problem. I was getting these little loops and they would be knotted in my line, and it happened a few different times with this. So I don't know what it is about the reel that was allowing these little micro loops to get in there. It probably hurt the casting distance a little bit. Maybe it would cause a stress on the line. I'm not sure. It's just weird. I've never really seen that before, but this is the only reel that I had it happen with. The last thing is, and the reason I stopped using it and said, okay, well, it's just time to do the review, the button on this thing is loud. I mean, it's what happened is after, it's nice and solid, so if you like that really positive feeling and knowing that it's there, hey, this is a great reel for you. But what happened to me was, as I was editing probably the 4th or 5th video that I fished with this, it was driving me nuts. And so I started thinking, what? People watching my YouTube videos, some of them are probably going to feel the same way. Every cast is like, it just, it was starting to wear on me. The brakes seemed to work really well. I didn't have too many blow-ups with this. All in all, it was just a really, really nice experience, at least from the fishing possibility. One thing to look at with this is that it does have sort of a Daiwa clone system. And so the brakes do work somewhat similar to some of the Daiwa systems. I'm not an expert in how all those different brake systems work. Right now I'm not even an expert on how to get this back on. There we go. But part of why I got it was recommended to me because it had essentially a copy or a knockoff of one of the Daiwa braking systems, which was different than most of the other stuff that I'd used. It's effective. I think it worked well. Like I said, the only negative for me is the those little line loops and then that noise. It's just so loud. It's not the lightest reel that I have. I think this is around 170 grams. It's also not the smallest. Yeah, the specs aren't on the box, and you know me, I'm not always big into the specs anyway. It has a nice standard gear ratio of 7.3 to 1, so that was nice because a lot of them are starting to get to 8.5 now, just as sort of the standard. I felt like for fishing spinner baits, this was fantastic. I love the speed for the spinner baits. I also had great success fishing the Nico Helgramite on. That's a much better fish. Pretty sure it's a smallie. Oh, oh man. Man, that's heavier than I thought it would be. Okay, so this spot is definitely a little bit of a hole that we should continue to explore. Look at that fish. Man, he has been eaten. That one, I was probably using a 15th, maybe even a 1/4 ounce Ned rig on that. But and it worked well. The line that I used the entire time is the Kingdom Microfly, and of course it's got the 6-pound fluoro leader. I probably would have kept fishing it had it not been for the noise that was starting to really, you know, get on my nerves. I think when I bought it, it was around $78, $78, $80. So that's not too bad. You know, to me, it reminded me of the Alphas Air, and if you're familiar with this channel at all, you know that I'm not a fan of the Alphas Air. I would probably actually, quite frankly, I enjoyed fishing with this more than I did the Alphas Air. It's not huge, it's not tiny, it fits my hands well. I actually really do like the contours on this. A lot of the reels these days have a little bit sharper edges. This one just feels like really nice and smooth, and sort of, ooh, it's sort of nice. You know, I really didn't have a whole bunch of negatives on this. I think if you would put upgraded bearings in it, this reel might benefit significantly for it. It's pretty smooth on the retrieve. I don't remember having too many problems with that. The drag seemed to work well. I caught a surprise channel catfish on a spinnerbait on this, and it handled it really well. I caught a couple really nice smallmouth and had no issues whatsoever. I never felt like this reel was you know, at risk of losing me a fish. Would I recommend this? Again, I think if you're an Alphas Air fan and you want a backup that, you know, sort of looks and maybe even performs similar to that, so yeah, I would pick this up. If you're somebody who loves that really loud conformation, one thing I will say, a lot of reels I've had the problem with the thumb bar doesn't re-engage all the way, and so you have that sort of a weird feeling. If you've ever experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. The Shimano Aldebaran, it happens on a fairly regular basis with that one. I've even seen it now a little bit on one of my Dark Wolf Ultras. So some of my favorite reels it happens. I've never had it happen on this. It seems like a pretty well built reel. You know, maybe I could argue that the finish doesn't hold up real well because it's probably more scratched up than just about any of the reels that I own, and you know, it probably had 5 or 6 trips on it. So you know, but they were rough trips, and I really try to pressure test and field test all of the stuff that I'm using. So you know, you can see some of the specs here. The YLT YLT Tank 150. It's a decent reel. I just think there are better options out there, especially with the Dark Wolf Ultra is a similar price. The Kingdom Micro Monster is a similar price, and I definitely like it a lot better than this reel. You know, so there are other options. And then again, if you're going to spend maybe a little more than double, then you start getting into some of the Shimano stuff. But for 40% or 1/3 the price of the Alphas Air, I think this could be a great backup reel. Especially again, if you're into that look. If the cosmetics are important to you, the cosmetics are pretty good on this reel as well. I wouldn't go so far to say don't buy this, right? But just know sort of what you're getting. You're not getting a Dark Wolf Ultra. You're getting something with a completely different braking system, something that was very easy to dial in. It has a very solid, positive feeling. You know, you can see the anti-reverse on the handle is absolutely, it's instantaneous. Really got a positive feeling. I probably won't be fishing with it that much. Not a bad buy at all. Just depends on whether or not you'd rather get something more like the Dark Wolf Ultra. But other than that, I don't know that there's too much that I would buy before this. And if you're just a real junkie like me, give it a try. It's something that you're probably not going to see a lot of other places, and it was a good performer. And especially if you're not recording videos and the audio doesn't matter, it'd be fine. So, YLT Tank 150, long-term review. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.